Everyone, please take your seats. We're about to begin. Everyone, please take your seats. We are about to begin.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Please come and find your seats. There's plenty of room up front. We'll start in a minute or two, but if you're wandering in, please come on in. Well, welcome to our closing plenary. We saved the best for last, so we're glad you stayed. I am Dikembe Mutombo. Truth is, when I was a kid playing ball, I wanted to be Dikembe Mutombo. And I was a little slow, and I couldn't shoot, and I had a vertical jump of about 1 inch. So there are some differences between us. But I'm Matthew Boulay, the founder of National Summer Learning Association. We are celebrating this year our 26th summer. And before we begin, I would like to just take a moment. We have a number of board members and staff here, and I would ask all of you to thank our staff and thank our board for the work they do. Please stand up. It's an extraordinary group of people. 20 million children live in poverty in this country. 20 million. That's an extraordinary number. And when I'm in a football stadium or baseball stadium, I sometimes think if there are 70 or 80,000 people here, how many stadiums would it take to get to 20 million? It's an extraordinary number. And we talk a lot about summer learning and summer health, summer nutrition, summer meals. Really what we're talking about are those 20 million children who live in poverty. And sometimes my friends outside of education ask me about children who live in poverty. Who are they? What are they like? 20 years ago, I was teaching in New York City. And I was teaching in an elementary school that was overcrowded. It's built for about 1,100 kids. It had 1,600 kids, K through 5. And all of the kids lived in poverty. And this was in the late 90s. And my kids, they were 5th graders and 4th graders, and they were into Pokemon cards. And I didn't know anything about Pokemon, but all year the kids, were trading and building their Pokemon collections. And there's one sweet little kid named Nestor who had the best collection of Pokemon cards. Nestor didn't have any money. His parents were immigrants, and they were really working hard, but they didn't have a lot of money. But I could see Nestor working the class and building up his collection. And one Monday morning, the assistant principal came in, and she said, "Class, I have some bad news. Over the weekend, an apartment building in our neighborhood burned, and a family whose children go to our school lost everything. And I'm here to ask you kids, if you could ask your parents maybe to bring in some gently used clothing, or if you have furniture, you could bring stuff in to help this family rebuild." And as the assistant principal was talking, Nestor got up, he walked to his backpack, he took out his collection of Pokemon cards, and he gave it to the assistant principal, and he said, "I would like them to have it." And then Nestor walked back to his desk, and he put his head down and he cried. And Nestor wasn't crying for that family that lost everything. Nestor was crying for himself. He loved Pokemon. And I often think of Nestor when I'm asked to do something that I know is right, but is hard, right? How many times do I do something that hurts me so much, that I give so much of myself that it hurts? And you hear their stories of students who find a former teacher 10 or 20 or 30 years later just to say thank you. Well, this is a story that I want to happen in reverse. I want to go back to Nestor. I want to find Nestor and say thank you, because it's not often that a 10-year-old teaches you a lesson that profound. And for me, that's children living in poverty, right? There are certainly challenges, and we know the statistics, but there are hearts of golds, and there are minds and their brains, and there's so much potential in this wonderful group of 20 million children living in poverty. And that really is the work, that's the work we're about. I believe profoundly that while summer matters to all children, summer matters most importantly to those kids living in poverty when their other resources, school-based resources, may not be available. So thank you all, for doing this work. I know, finally, after 26 years, I know that the work you do, there's never enough resources. There's always more children who need to be served and parts of the community that are not even touched. And I know our work is hard, and sometimes I'm in a meeting with a prospective funder and I say the same thing again and again. And like our speaker yesterday, I feel like I gotta prove that water is wet and fire is hot, right? Why do we have to say that summer matters? Can't we all get it yet? And so I know the work is hard, and it's a long way of saying thank you to you all for persevering, for fighting summer after summer, and for doing what you do. I think it matters. It matters to our kids. It matters to our nation. With that, we'll kick off the panel. I think all of you know that we have a new CEO at NSLA. He has hit the ground running. He started on June 1st and has worked tirelessly to build up our summer learning offerings and conference. And I think everybody, maybe everyone on staff and board now feels we can pause a little bit after conference and debrief a little bit with Aaron and with you all think about what happens for summer 2020. So please join me in welcoming Aaron Dworkin.
All right, good morning, everyone. Now we're gonna do a little bit louder. It's the last session. You made it. Congrats, the last session of our conference. We're gonna end on a high note. We have an amazing panel for you, but boy, is it a real honor. And I wanna say thank you, Matthew, for your leadership and vision that created this organization. I get to build on your legacy. I get to work with our wonderful national board, our wonderful staff, and we actually have a few other people on our team, and we're gonna be talking about teamwork today, but I think it's worth noting that we're a small and mighty staff, but one of the ways we're able to have huge outreach is that we partner with so many of you, and we actually have field consultants who are part of our team, an extension of our team. If we have any field consultants, can you stand up, please, for a second here? Let's give them a round of applause. Our field consultants, I just want to put a plug in for them, are professional educators working in the field like you, side by side, with expertise, but they're passionate about summer learning. And so when we can't be everywhere, if any of you have a request and need some partnership from NSLA, we're able to send them. And they're trained in our best practices, and they're trained to be able to share those with you and your team and staff. So just know that's an extra resource, and we're here to help you take your summer learning programs to the next level. So today's panel is about the power of sports to uplift youth and communities. And we have been, so many of the programs, we have an academic goal, but we do have a health and fitness component. And I think we're gonna hear and learn about how do we take that health and fitness component to another level, and how do we use it to really strengthen the academic and social emotional learning parts as well. And we've been getting support from the NBA, and they have a junior NBA program. And I wanna just show a video. They're sponsoring this session, sponsoring this conference, and they want to be bigger and long-term partners with our work. So we're going to watch a short video on what they do, and then we're going to come back and call up our panelists soon. Thanks.
Ask anyone who's played, and they'll tell you how hoops can completely change your life.
I think I was about 4 or 5 when I got
my first basketball hoop. That planted the seed for what I wanted to do with my life, and kind of gave me the love of the game and the passion that I have for the game.
While learning the fundamentals, the basic ball handling, the fancy footwork, the pick and roll, the give and go, you're really learning teamwork, respect, determination, and that you're a part of something bigger than you.
So we're gonna play D, we're gonna play hard, we're gonna play together, we're gonna communicate, and we're gonna share the ball on offense.
A community of athletes across the globe who speak the same language, no matter where they're from. That's why at the Junior NBA, we embrace everyone,
basketball into a sport that's inclusive, and we're here to spread that NBA magic.
We champion change on behalf of girls and women. We aim to develop a lifelong passion for this great game.
That's how we play defense, arms up here, yeah?
The things you learn in life, you can use on the court and get better at, as well as the things in basketball. Resilience, toughness, being a competitor, being a great teammate. Those are important in life.
Because we understand that sports teaches kids not just how to be good athletes, but how to be good people.
I love basketball, and this game is special because it's definitely taught me about being a person, brought relationships that'll last for the rest of my life.
Join the Junior NBA today.
Okay. All right, well, thank you to the Junior NBA for the video, but also for their support again. And basketball, it's funny, I don't know how many of you love basketball, but basketball's played a big part in my life, and actually a big part of how I ended up in this job and this career. And I'll just share with you, I've been saying to a few people, but I think there's a connection to summer, which is, so when I played high school basketball, we had a coach who would tell us all the time, listen, no one gets better once the season starts. Once the season starts, you are where you are. We have practice, but we're busy with games and practice. If you really want to get better, if you want to go from the JV to the varsity, if you want to go from varsity to starter, from starter to all county, all state, it's based on the work and effort you put in over the summer. And that got nailed home to me. And the kids who put in that effort over the summer, they came back the next year and they went from being the last guy on the bench to a starter. And that's similar to what we're trying to do in our work, that we know summer is this time of improvement, that we could all get better. And so I'll just tell you real fast, after college, I moved to New York City. I started volunteering with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I was a mentor, and the woman running the program said she had a huge waiting list of teenage boys, many of whom didn't have male role models at home, and they needed mentors. And this woman said, I have a lot of female volunteers. I cannot figure out how to find male volunteer mentors. And I was a young guy, and I was playing basketball 2 or 3 times a week after work in all these leagues and gyms all across New York City with hundreds of guys, great guys, who are all college educated, who are all doing well, who all would make great mentors, but didn't think they had any time to volunteer, but stopped whatever they were doing on Tuesday and Thursday at 7 o'clock to play basketball. So it did not take a rocket scientist to say, hey guys, instead of just playing with each other, would you play with 50 teenage boys? And they were like, yes, and from that, and the one last thing is, then Bill Bradley, if any of you remember him, he was a U.S. Senator, ran for president, but he played for the Knicks. And he wrote a great book called Values of the Game. And there are a lot of books like this, but this one I picked up, and it was about life and leadership skills you can learn from basketball. And when I read that, like all of you, I was like, this is curriculum. Let's turn this into the curriculum of a basketball mentoring camp. And from that, we created a program called Hoops and Leaders, which ran across New York and Brooklyn and ran for many years. And when I went to After School All-Stars, over the last 12 years, we were able to bring that to many cities across the country. So it just showed that basketball, like all sports though, is a place of connection and a way to build relationships and to learn bigger life lessons. And not every one of us gets to be Dikembe Mutombo, but you know, we could try. And we could also take a lot of the examples that you set and apply it to other parts of our life. And I'm just gonna say, last thing, a couple obvious things that we know about sports. Some people lament how much we live in a sports-crazed society. I say accept it and use it. If I say Serena, what's her last name? If I say Tiger, if I say Michael, just in case you thought generic names didn't work. We know more, I have young people I've worked with who know more about what LeBron James did yesterday than they know what happened in their own family yesterday. So how do you leverage people's passion and insights into sports and what they love? And what we also know is, just like that Bill Bradley book, if any of you go to Barnes & Noble still, which maybe you don't, but if you ever went to a sports section of a bookstore and you looked at the books, all the books are not about how do you play the sport, they're about what lessons can you learn from the sport. And so if we're educators working with kids and know that young people care about sports, there is curriculum sitting out there that's for us to take our energy and our creativity and apply to your programs. And the last thing is, sports we know bring us together in society in a way very few other things do. And I just saw this most recently. You know, maybe a museum works, maybe a concert works, but where else do people from all walks of life gather on a regular basis? We have Andrea from the Hawks, who's bringing people together. Maybe some people sit in the front row and some people sit in the nosebleeds, but they're having a shared experience in a way that we don't see all the time. And what do you do with that? And I live near Washington, D.C., and a couple years ago, maybe the Nationals will win the World Series, we'll see, but a couple years ago in hockey, the Capitals won. And it was so noticeable. There was a parade downtown, if any of you are from D.C., and it was the first gathering in Washington, D.C., since I've lived there for years, where people were gathering because they were happy. Not because they were protesting, no one's getting arrested, no one's booing anybody. It was just pure joy in a way that you don't see anywhere else. And if the Nationals do it again, especially for the people of D.C. where they're so divided and so depressed, everyone needs a little pick-me-up. And that's something sports could do. But we want to figure out, how do we take the great things about sports and bring it to kids and families and communities and extend the health benefits and the learning benefits? And so we're going to have a conversation today about that, and we have a great panel. Again, their bios are in your app, they're in your program, so I'm not going to read all the details, but they're going to share more about their lives. So I'd like one at a time to call them up. We have the CEO of the U.S. Soccer Foundation, a good friend of mine, a good friend to all of you, Ed Foster-Simeon. We have from the Atlanta Hawks, and by the way, since we're here in Andrea, we asked the NBA, we said, who's the best person running community relations in the country? They said, Andrea at the Hawks. You got to get Andrea Carter, Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility. May have had the shortest commute. I think the arena is like across the street, so thank you for coming over. From the Laureus Foundation, which works all around the world with Olympic athletes, but based here, Pharlone Charity Toussaint from the Laureus Foundation for Sports. And then a friend who I feel bad for you, Dikembe, because everyone wants to take your picture all day long, but a wonderful man, a Hall of Fame basketball player, a global ambassador, but more importantly, a Hall of Fame humanitarian who started the Dikembe Mutombo Foundation and is building schools and hospitals in the Congo and doing wonderful events and wonderful efforts for so many organizations, Mr. Dikembe Mutombo. So I'm going to come over there and we will start asking a few questions. Hello? All right, so I'm going to, if I stand, I look short. If I sit next to him, I look short. There's no way to win here. How are you?
I'm doing good.
All right, hi everybody. Okay,
Hello.
I'm going to stand for a minute until I feel more self-conscious. Okay. So let's start, Dikembe, we're going to start with you because I'm not sure that everyone knows your story, but I've learned it from speaking with you and researching some of your stuff. We know all the things you do in now, post-career, but can you explain to folks even how you ended up at Georgetown, ended up on the basketball team? You went there on an academic scholarship, not a basketball scholarship, and then it turned into a long career that's turned into a long career in philanthropy. So do you mind just sharing about your journey?
First, I want to say thank you for having me here today. My story is very long, but I'm going to try to make it short. I was lucky and fortunate enough to win a scholarship from a USAID, United States International for Development, which is an agency from the State Department. I got a scholarship because I was a good student in science and math, which gave me the opportunity to attend Georgetown University to pursue my education in medicine, maybe becoming a doctor one day. But when I got there, I was called out by everybody to see why I was not on a basketball team. Everybody was like, how come you didn't play yesterday? I was like, what's going on? And then I realized that my dean, my coaches, all of my friends at school, the school university president was begging me to join the team. Then I told them maybe next year. I know they were not happy, but it took me like a year to make that decision for me to join the basketball team. And when I joined it, I didn't play basketball when I was young because I hate the sport. I didn't like the game. I thought maybe it was a little bit violence. People was always bumping each other every time they go up and down. I thought maybe playing soccer was great, which is still one of my favorite sports because that's all I knew since I was young. But I really enjoy playing basketball, and basketball made me to be Dikembe Mutombo who I am today.
Thank you. We'll come back to learning a little bit more about your philanthropic career and everything else. I'm going to go over here to Pharlone. So just tell us a little bit more about the Laureus Foundation. We actually have a short video, so why don't we watch that first? But just so people know, the Laureus Foundation is using sports to spread values across the country and around the world. So we have a little video. We'll show it, and then we'll come back to you.
Sport has a unique ability to create powerful emotions in all of us. Nothing else brings so many people together in such a positive way.
The Laureus Sport for Good Foundation is certainly a genuinely amazing thing, and its aims are to tackle violence, discrimination, and disadvantage all around the world.
Sport has inspired all of us in so many different ways, and it has power to reach children everywhere around the world and to give them hope.
About 6 years ago, we came to you guys with a concept for surf therapy. You believed in us, you funded us, you connected us to universities, and now we're here. And our program is reaching almost 1,000 people around the world.
Everybody who works at Street League believes that everyone has the potential to achieve amazing things and they just need to be given the support. We genuinely believe that sport can change lives.
I've been in Cobap since I was young, and I've grown up in Cobap. Cobap is my man, is my dad.
Que Laureus sea nuestros aliados. Primero nos da un respaldo impresionante. Gracias a su ayuda podremos llegar a más niños. Nos ha ayudado a abrirnos la esperanza.
For all the Academy members and the rest of Laureus, what you're doing is helping so many people, so keep on doing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, first of all, I don't know which looks more fun, that dinner or the games with the kids. I probably would play with the students. But Pharlone, can you just tell us a little bit more what Laureus is up to and what you're doing here in Atlanta?
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. So the work I'm in is using the power of sport to improve the lives of youth and unite communities. That means, it sounds really huge. I don't want to get too tactical about what it is I do, but I've actually got some grantees in the room. If you guys want to stand up really quick so I can say hi to you. These folks are some of the folks here in Atlanta.
We're taking attendance, so you all better be here.
We're taking attendance.
She paid for you to be here. You better be here.
We're taking attendance. Girls on the Run, First Tee of Atlanta. I mean, Teach a Child to Fish. I've got organizations that are using the power of sport to do everything from STEM and science all the way to teaching life skills and confidence to girls. I'm also monitoring and evaluating those grants to make sure that they're actually making the impact that they say they want to make. But on top of that, we're also convening organizations and different stakeholders from all different industries, because we understand to make systems level change, we need to work together across industry lines. And so we've got a Sport for Good Atlanta Alliance that meets quarterly and is trying to realize what their resources are, what their assets are, and work together to solve for the root causes of the issues of education, community cohesion, health and well-being, and employability and income in Atlanta, New York, Chicago, and New Orleans, but of course, as you can see, all over the world.
Great, thank you. And so hopefully, if this is not an organization you've heard of, this is one that you can research and partner with, and they're in your community. Andrea, I'm going to come back to you one second. I'm going to go to Ed, and then we're going to come back to Andrea. So Ed, you're with the U.S. Soccer Foundation, also running kind of similar programs with similar goals. And you are trying to build 1,000 fields across the country to serve 1 million kids in U.S. soccer, or bring soccer to all these kids. Again, we have a short video, and then we're going to ask you a couple questions. All right.
What if everyone had access to a pitch, a ball, and a game to play?
What if all of us could be part of a team?
What if every child had a coach and a mentor?
What if putting this on meant a sense of belonging and a source of inspiration?
What if we got the chance to fulfill our dreams?
What if we all had a safe place to play right in our neighborhood? Soccer, it's everyone's game.
That's why the U.S. Soccer Foundation is building 1,000 pitches
With soccer programs
For 1 million kids.
by 2026.
but we can't do it alone. So, are you in?
All right, we'll give a round of applause for the U.S. Soccer Foundation. I think there are a lot of people here who do partner with you. So Ed, why don't you tell us about the goals of the Soccer Foundation and then kind of also the issues of equity and access and what you're working on for that?
Well, that's the real point, equity and access, and leveraging the power of sports to improve health and youth development outcomes for children, particularly children in underserved communities. For the first half of the life of the U.S. Soccer Foundation, we were invested in building the game of soccer broadly in the United States, helping to grow the game post-94 World Cup. When we looked back 11 years ago and did an assessment, we realized the game had done quite well in middle-class, more affluent communities, but underserved communities, low-income communities have been left behind. And we decided as an organization to focus all of our time and resources on reaching children in underserved communities and leveraging the game to improve their health and youth development outcomes. Sport is a powerful vehicle for youth development and social change. There's no denying that, but you have to be intentional about it. And so we created a program called Soccer for Success, which trains coaches how to be what we call coach mentors and provides them with a curriculum that not only allows them to teach skills and drills, but also how to incorporate learnings around nutrition, around behavior, around life skills development, all in a fun atmosphere. The point that I always make is youth coaches are among the most underutilized national resource that we have in this country. They are among the most influential people in a child's life. Kids go to school because they have to. They come running and laughing to their coaches because they want to be there, they want to learn from them, and they have fun doing it. And we believe that leveraging that powerful relationship of the coach and the relationship that the child has with that coach is like, we have to maximize that. And you do that by providing coaches and programs and organizations with the training, the curriculum, and the tools they need to be able to deliver results. And results matter, because it's easy to say sports are good for you, but how do you measure that? Well, we found that when you execute it in this kind of intentional way, 83% of the kids have significant health improvements, 86% of kids avoid negative social behavior, and 81% say they feel better about their future. That, I didn't understand that at first, but it was explained to me that actually translates to hope. And when you're growing up in a difficult situation, the ability to feel better about your future represents hope. And that's what a coach mentor can do in a child's life if that's their purpose.
Thank
Can I
you.
just-
Yes, Andrea, I was going to ask you a question, but jump in. Go for it.
Can you hear me? Okay. First, I want to say thank you for having me here as well. I was just going to echo what you were saying around coaching development. We look at the court as a classroom and coaches as some of our greatest teachers. And so we know that sports have become income-based, so we scholarship 25% of our kids into every camp and clinic that we do. We also go out and provide free coaches training. And so we do touch on some of the things, the X's and the O's. But for us, it really is about teaching them about how to deal with difficult parents, teaching them about leadership skills, teaching them about diversity and inclusion. We may have our CDIO come in and do a session with some of the coaches about working with young people from different backgrounds and different abilities. So for us, it is about the game, and we certainly want more fans, but ultimately, we want to build up young people. We want to build up coaches. If we did a poll and I said, raise your hand if you're a volunteer coach, hands might go up, and we know why some of those hands might go up. It might go up because you were the only one in church or the only one at your school that said, hey, I'll do it, but you don't necessarily have the tools and resources to do that, and that's where we come in and try to supplement those coaches that have been voluntold that this is what you will do. We want to make sure you're having the best impact on young people.
Thank you. Andrea, I'm going to stay with you. So, Andrea, you're with the Hawks, and I just want to make a public service announcement to everyone. In my experience in education, no person in a city knows more about what's going on in the education and nonprofit sector than the head of community relations at your local NBA team. Because every nonprofit in that city is calling her for a meeting and a request, and she meets with thousands of groups. So from that perspective, you've also worked at Boys and Girls Club of America. You've been with the Hawks for 17 years. You're dealing with every nonprofit's calling you. So what I'd like to ask for you to share with us is, when you're looking for a nonprofit partner or just a program partner, what makes one stand out and what makes a good partnership?
Yeah, so I'll talk about that, but I'll also say we have it a lot easier now over the last 5 years because we've really streamlined our focus. And so fortunately or unfortunately, that means a lot of stuff that we used to do, we don't do anymore. So we used to be everything to everybody. We were in education, we were in recreation, health and wellness, we were doing scholarships, you name it, all very good work. But then we had to sit back and refocus and say, how can we have the most impact? What is it that we do? And for us, that really was around the sport of basketball and how can we leverage that to bring about some different outcomes. So for us, when we're looking at partnerships, we're looking at a couple of things. We're looking at accountability. We want to make sure that if we're going to be giving money or assets to an organization, that they are doing with those funds what they say they're going to do. We're looking for reciprocity because at the end of the day, it's still a business. And so there are goals and objectives that we have that we want to hit as well. But ultimately, we're looking for alignment. Are we moving in the same direction as it relates to our mission and the focus of the partners that are coming to us? Because there are great causes out there, but they don't all sit in our sweet spot. So for us, we really look at, is this a match for our mission? And I will say, for our players, it's the same thing. Our players are looking for things that are authentically themselves. Did they grow up in a military family like John Collins did? Did they grow up with a passion around supporting cancer? Or do they want to make the world safer for women and girls? And so we use certainly our organization, but then we also leverage our players and their platforms, and we try to get some of our most notable alumni to come along with us.
She was not looking at me.
So accountability, reciprocity are some of the things that we look for in a mission match.
And maybe I'll just ask you a follow-up, which is, so if somebody's trying, maybe they think they're a match, what's like their best way for reaching out? What advice to connect to the team or a player?
I think the best way, I mean, honestly, it's really, if you can connect through someone, if Pharlone came to me and said, Andrea, you really need to sit down and talk to X, that's going to go a long way. But I say also in doing your research and knowing what it is that we focus on and think beforehand, how can there be alignment versus saying this is what we do? Come prepared to say, here's how I think we have alignment and we can collaborate together.
That's great. So Dikembe, I want to come back to you. So we heard a little bit how you ended up on the Georgetown team. And then once your NBA career got started, you didn't wait to retire to start doing all your philanthropic work.
No.
So could you just share a little bit more about how you got into all the philanthropic activities that you've been doing for so long?
Yes. After I got drafted, I really knew exactly what I want to do in life. Not just to play the game of basketball, which I love so much, but I was asking myself, what kind of impact can I have in our community, also to the place where I come from. I believe that being a great basketball player that used to be, it was a gift, but in the same token, you have to realize that you are not who you are if it was not because of the community where you live in, who support you, who devote to the game that you are playing, who do their best in every given night to come with their loved one, to come see you in the stadium, to appreciate your game. So I was trying to see, what can I give to them back? And I knew that going back to the community, that means I have to start the Dikembe Mutombo Foundation. First, I start by working as a global ambassador for CARE International, which is based here in Atlanta, traveling around the world for them, and doing a lot of community work with the Atlanta Hawks and Habitat Humanity and all of those stuff. And I was like, okay. In 1997, I said, okay, it's been 7 years I've been doing this. I've been working with a bunch of partners, but there's nothing, you have a footprint of Dikembe Mutombo name on it. So I said, maybe starting a Dikembe Mutombo Foundation, which will be a goal to build a brand new hospital in Democratic Republic of Congo, where they have expertise like 42 for men and 45 for women. And many children are dying from different diseases. I say, maybe if I can becoming part of that solution, maybe I can save so many lives, because I understand the poverty from day one. Because I was born I come from a very poor family. My father didn't make more than $37 a month as a teacher, so he did have 10 children, and I look at the struggle that I have to go through as a young child. I never got a chance to get on the bus to go to school. I have to walk to school for an hour and a half to get to class, rain or no rain. So when I look at it, I say, I want to be part of the solution. And I'm glad with the work that the Dikembe Mutombo Foundation has been doing and what we are doing now, not just in the healthcare, but now we are also trying to go to our second stage, which was to build a school, which will open in the next 19 months. So we are looking for.
Thank you. So impressive. Let's give you a round of applause for all that work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just want to say something about Dikembe. Somebody, he has literally and figuratively big shoes, right, that he walks in because he believes in the work and he's committed to that. I went to his office one day and he pulled out a stack of business cards that was about this thick, and he talked about where he met each of the people on those business cards and what resources they had that could help him to continue the work that he's doing in Congo, and how he committed that to memory. And then he pulled out another stack and he was like, and these are people that I've committed to memory, or I write notes on them to know who they are and where I need to show up and how we can partner together. And so I am so proud to know him. He is a role model for the work that we do and the work that he's doing in the Congo, and he sits on the board of Special Olympics nationally, and there's so many other things. But when you talk about using the power of sport to make change, he is the embodiment of all of that. So
thank you.
So thank you. So Pharlone, I think, in 2019 we've been seeing the rise of the athlete activist, and we have so many examples where maybe a couple decades ago athletes said, I don't want to alienate fans, I'm not going to talk out about issues. But now we're seeing more and more athletes and leagues even talking about social justice issues. I know Laureus is doing a lot to kind of bring up social justice issues in your work. Do you mind sharing what you're doing and what are your thoughts on that now?
Sure. I love a scandalous question. First I'll say, actually, athletes have been using their platform to do social justice for a very long time. A good friend of mine, John Carlos and Tommy Smith, 1968 Olympics, last week it was 51 years since he made that brave decision to put his fist up at the Olympics and lose everything he spent years fighting for, right? So that was way before I was born, okay? But he set the tone for the way that athletes should believe in a cause, so much so that they would sacrifice their own accolades, their own journey to that cause. And it wasn't easy for him. That was 51 years. It's only 50 years later that he's getting the pat on the back But immediately after, they stripped him of all of his accolades. He was nothing to anybody. 50 years later, for you to get that kind of love. So, you know, I mean, LeBron does great, Steph Curry does great, but they are standing on the shoulders of athletes who sacrificed their lives, who are blacklisted, who really did everything possible. Edwin Moses, our chairman at the foundation, you know, he was a pariah to the media. I mean, if you go back into the annals of journalism and look at what they said about him just because he was an intelligent and brilliant black man who was trying to speak up about racial injustice in Atlanta, the blackest city in the country, you know? Like, these athletes are so courageous, and it's, you know, you got a lot to lose when you decide to step up and speak on behalf of that. And, you know, I'm proud to have chosen an organization that has over 250 ambassadors across the world, highly decorated, very winning athletes who said, hey, we're gonna take that mantle, the words of Nelson Mandela to say, hey, you know, we believe that sport has the power to bring hope where there was once despair, light where there was once darkness. And we've got 9 foundations across the globe, millions of youth, hundreds of millions of dollars invested in using sport to make actual impact in the lives of young people. And athletes have propelled that energy. They've used their platform to push that forward and allow us to continue to exist. So I'm hoping to make an ambassador out of him.
I'm ready.
Okay, got it. Well, he's already.
He signed up. He signed up.
You saw it.
All right, your work is done here.
Yeah.
Good work.
Yeah. But our CEO, Benita Fitzgerald Mosley, is an Olympic gold medalist. She is the embodiment of how the power of sport brought her to the place where she's able to lead this organization. And so I'm honored that we get to do this work every day, and with people who aren't just, you know, poster childs, right? The ambassador program is not about a social media or marketing campaign. These people are going to site visits where landmines are being found with soccer balls, right? Like, they are literally investing their time, driving funds to the organization. It's not this superficial, you know, shaking hands, kissing babies thing. So I'm very proud of
And it's happening
our
when cameras
ambassadors.
are not there, too.
Yeah,
So that's the
yeah,
point.
absolutely.
And because I like to ad-lib when people say stuff, I just have to add preach, because I think she really was preaching in that moment there about the history of the athlete and how they use their platform for good. So, preach, sister.
Thank you. Ed, I'm going to come to you now. And I think there is a tendency where we put a spotlight and emphasis on star athletes. And Pharlone, you were talking about the well-known, and Dikembe, obviously you are. But Ed, you're really also working, and all of us are working, with the regular student athlete who's not going to be professional, might not get a college scholarship. And so and you're trying to reach them too. And I think we all know that if you hit 14 and you're not good enough to make a varsity travel team, you might not play an organized sport again for the rest of your life and have a coach. So how do you combat that?
So we use a statistic that less than 1% of kids will get paid to play whatever sport they're participating, less than 1%. So we want there to be a payoff for the other 99% as well. And that payoff comes in the form of the outcomes that we've been talking about, the life skills development we've been talking about. Children have been participating in sport for millennia because it is a non-traditional learning platform. It's a place where they learn incredible life skills, perseverance, grit, leadership, teamwork, all those things that one day, when you go to work, to become a part of a team, they help you to become productive, healthy citizens. So this focus so much on the elite athletes sometimes confuses coaches of what their purpose is. Their purpose is to lift up all these children. And so our work at the foundation is, when we first started this work with Soccer for Success, it was all about us designing and developing curriculum and training and those kinds of things, and working with partners. We're serving close to 100,000 kids this year nationally. But now we're moving into a phase where we want to share our learnings with other child-serving organizations, because, as was stated, there are millions of children in poverty and low-income households who don't have access and opportunity to the learning platform that sports provides. And we want to share our learnings with other child-serving organizations, give them the tools, the curriculum, the training that they need to be able to leverage sport in a positive way to get outcomes. It's why when we designed the Soccer for Success program, it wasn't designed as a competitive league. It was designed as an opportunity for kids to play together after school in small-sided games after school. Because once you introduce the competitive dynamic, you get to, well, you're not good enough, you shouldn't be here, we only want the best players. And we believe that all children, regardless of their athletic ability, can benefit from participating in sport, and we want to create that access and opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. So, this ties into relationship building, which is a big piece of what we all do in community building. I'll just make a quick observation. I have no data to back up my following comment, which is I believe that more complete strangers meet each other and become friends playing pickup basketball than any other activity in the United States. Because if you have ever played pickup basketball, the way it works is you show up at a park, you say, who's got next? Who needs one? All right. You get on someone's team, and then you play for the next 3 hours. You high-five somebody, you might win, and it's like, I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe there's pickup choir, I don't know. Maybe there's pickup I don't know where else that happens. And so it's interesting, Andrea, because you have the word community in your title. And we all think at our summer learning programs, they're all based, at the end of the day, on building a close-knit community that cares for each other. So can you talk about how your job and your team are building trust with the community here in Atlanta, and when it's not worked and what has worked?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a conversation about this before. Let me see where I will start. I think what we do to build trust is really to show up authentically. How do we show up? When do we show up? And for what purpose? So when Pharlone was talking about it's not about kissing babies and showing up for the camera, we can't do that. We had a crisis about 5 years ago with some things that happened within our organization as it related to ownerships and general managers at the time, which created a firestorm in the community. There was a lack of trust around the Atlanta Hawks and who we were and how we showed up in community. And so for us, we had to sit back and take a look at what are we doing? What are we putting out there? Where are we showing up? When are we showing up? And are we being authentic and true to those folks that we are serving as we say we are? And I put serving in quotes because it is a gift and a privilege to be of service to others. And so for us, I think now we show up when the cameras aren't on. And not that we always did that, but I would be lying if I said there weren't times where there was a necessity to do that. But now we show up, we don't just show up and build a court and leave. And years ago, we might have been guilty of that. So we also had to do some soul searching. We show up, we build that court, then we come back now thanks to a partnership with State Farm, and we go inside those recreation centers and we renovate a space inside of those rec centers because we know many kids don't have a place after school where they can go that's safe, has great technology, where they can learn. And so we provide those assets to those rec centers. And then we now go back with different programming in those communities as well. So what it's saying to those communities is really that the Hawks care about us, they are a part of us, and they didn't come here and leave us. They're going to come back and continue to come back. So for us, it has been looking at how do we show up, when do we show up, and do we do that on an ongoing and consistent basis where folks would go, no, those are my Atlanta Hawks.
That's great.
And I just want to add that the Hawks are actually a part of the Sport for Good Atlanta Alliance, and they're at our quarterly meetings where they're sharing their side of the story on what they can contribute to using their power and platform to make an impact in the area that we serve. So, I mean, she's putting her money where her mouth is when she says that, because not every professional sports team is showing up at the table with residents, teachers, coaches, youth to say, hey, what is it that we can do to contribute to systems level change? So,
Can I just add on this whole idea of community? I talk a lot about the kids and the impact on kids, but the impact of sport on community is phenomenal. When there's an absence of sport, you lack that gathering place that brings neighbors together who might not otherwise know or meet each other. Some of my best friends are people that I met on the touchline of a soccer match, watching our kids play, people that I would never have encountered or had a reason to engage with, and now we're lifelong friends through this engagement of sport. And when you activate what I call fallow spaces, negative spaces, with programming for youth, it not only affects the youth. Grandma suddenly comes out and sits in the park to watch the kids playing because it is now a safe space. So we think about this often just as the kids, but it's community level change. And when you have an absence of youth sports opportunity, that's a key component of a healthy community. And when you don't have it, the community is not really healthy. And that's why we have to think about it in a broader sense of the meaning of this. And the last thing I'll say is we underestimate how much children influence adults. Look at seatbelts, look at recycling, look at how children will come home and say, no, we can't move the car because you don't have your seatbelt on. Stop smoking. They start crying because they know information.
Stop texting.
Right. And so now what we have found is the kids, they hear from their coach, you should eat this and you should eat that. They go home and they say, Mom, coach says I should eat this and I should eat that. And all parents love their children, and they're going to try and do the right thing when they're provided with information. So this is bigger than just the kid with a ball or a kid with a bat or the kid it's about really affecting and impacting community through sport.
All right, so we're running out of time. Do you want to add something there?
No, all I will say that I agree with my colleague here in the panel to know that there's not much we can say more than what is being said here, because our athletes are doing a lot. We are really having an impact in our community, and I wish that we can bring the camera and the media everywhere we go. Our players and from basketball, soccer, and other sports, and tennis, you name it, from rugby, they're having a huge impact in the global communities. And we are saving the planet. We are saving the world. But media, you have a tendency to find what we are not doing right and to put us on the spotlight. But nobody want to talk about what Dikembe Mutombo is doing. I just point out the name here. Or how many lives Dikembe Mutombo is saving in the Democratic Republic of Congo. You look at our foundation, we have treated more than 200,000+ people, especially women and children, at the hospital in the last 10 years. But media don't want to write about that. Media will not write about the school that the foundation is building. The impact that will have in a community where girls are getting married at the age of 12 and 13 years old, where the foundation is created by the athlete, coming in trying to solve the problem in our community. Know that, no, we cannot let our young girls being giving away at the age of 13, 14 years old because they reached that stage. No way. We want to change them. We want them, and we want our women to have a big impact in our community, because our society will not move forward if we don't have an educated women, educated mother, educated grandmother, educated aunties. And our players are doing it. You look at the thing LeBron doing in Cleveland by going back to the community where he came from and building a school. He's having a huge impact. I hope, my hope, that the world will see that. Our players from basketball to soccer to all the major league are having a huge impact, are changing the community. You look what the Hawks are doing just here in town. How many more basketball courts have been built by the city alone? Maybe zero. But you look at what the Hawks have done already in the last just 4 years to see how many parks that they have been open to our community. All of that because of social change of sport. Sports still have a power to change the world, and sports have a power to change our community, like Madiba said. And we will continue to do it as long as we're still alive.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we're going to leave it there. We could all talk for much longer, but thank you all. Let's give a round of applause to these guiding lights.
Thank you, guys.
And I think we know that there's some takeaways, and we want to challenge everyone here, when you think about your program and what you're designing, how can we incorporate sports and the life and leadership lessons and community lessons that they're setting an example for us, and how do we build that and bring that to our communities? So I'll let you guys walk off the stage, but one last round of applause for our panelists. Thank you. Okay. Before we wrap up, thank you, everybody. All right. So as we wrap up here, this brings to a close almost our conference, and we're so grateful. We have something from the Junior NBA, a little raffle that they offered up. I'm not sure that Amy from the Junior NBA is here, but Malika, this was something we committed to doing. They created a prize. We want to make sure we honor that. All right. Let's see what we got. Is Penny Seals here? All right, Penny, second row. You win the prize from the Junior NBA. Thank you again to all our panelists. Thank you to our support. Now, let me just ask you, do we have the lights from Lights On? Have they been passed around? Okay, so maybe some of you know, I'm going to ask Katie Landis, one of our partners along with the United Way, who helped us put together this whole conference. And as you sit there, our staff are bringing along little light bulbs. And it marks tomorrow, I believe, the 20th anniversary of an event that we do with a big partner, the After School Alliance, to celebrate the importance of after school and summer programs, and they call it Lights On because we want everyone to keep the lights on during out of school time. Katie's going to tell us more about this celebration.
Thanks, Aaron. So, yes, tomorrow is the 20th anniversary of National Lights On After School Day, and this week, more than 1 million Americans will be celebrating Lights On After School. There's nearly 9,000 events from coast to coast that are bringing community leaders, parents, educators together. They're making catapults, making art, doing STEM activities, and also getting physical and raising their voices. Tomorrow night, SpongeBob and After School Youth will help to light up the Empire State Building in support of Lights On After School. And in fact, in Atlanta, right across the park, the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, they will be having special lights tomorrow night celebrating Lights On After School. Not only that, but for the first time ever, NSLA, the After School Alliance, Clear Channel, and the National League of Cities are all partnering together to have special billboards across the month, over the month of October, celebrating Lights On After School, having really positive messages about after school. And in fact, at 7 p.m. tomorrow, all 1,300 billboards they have across the country will pause to have messages about after school, including 2 giant screens in New York's Times Square. Across the country, there's more than 10 million children who participate in after-school programs. That may sound like a lot, but for every 1 child that's in a program, there are 2 more that are waiting to get in. So that means there are nearly 20 million waiting for access to a program. Why are these programs so popular? Well, just like what we've been hearing all the last 2 days here in Atlanta about summer, after-school programs keep kids safe, they inspire learning, and they give working parents peace of mind that their children are safe, that they're learning, and that they have supervised care during the after-school time. After-school and summer programs help young people develop the skills they need to thrive in school and in life, and to help build stronger communities. So a new report was just released this month by law enforcement group Fight Crime, Invest in Kids, and it reinforces just how critical after-school programs are for youth. If we are serious about helping young people thrive and have access to these types of programs and reach their full potential, we have to increase funding for after-school and summer learning programs across our country. Working together, we can expand after-school and summer programs so that every young person has access to the quality, affordable program Every child deserves great programs like the ones that y'all run every day. So we want you to keep educating your elected officials, remind them to keep the lights on and the doors open after the school bell rings and all summer long. So we hope that everyone can join us tomorrow in celebrating Lights On after school. Keep spreading the message, tell everyone what y'all are doing in the summer, if you're in the school year as well, what you're doing throughout the school year and the importance of these programs and what the young people need.
Thank you, Katie. So that's all about partnerships, After School Alliance, NSLA. We're working together for the same team, same kids, same cause, and we're trying to make sure all of us have the resources we need to change lives. So because we're living in 2019 and we're in a social media world, we are going to take a group selfie, and we're going to ask Dikembe to stand here. We're going to bring everyone together. If you could pack it in, and we'll ask our photographer here, and maybe we'll give Dikembe one phone to take a picture of all of us. But we're going to post this photo of us holding our little light bulb lights that you have. And so if I could ask everyone to come together, and we'll ask our photographer to come up too. Just bring it in over here into the middle. You can just face the stage. She'll come up on stage. So Dikembe, you can stand right there. You're the center. You're the tallest light bulb we got here. We could all get together. If you have your little light, you could turn it on. Or is it just a button? I'm not sure. It's just a button, just a button. Ah, you wear the button. This is the army we're fighting with to help kids. Here we are. Can you say on 1, 2, 3, say summer learning? So it's for after school, but we're also this is gonna help us end our conference, and we're all gonna hopefully stay in touch, work closely together, and come back next year. You'll hear from us. On the count of 3, say summer learning. We'll do it on the count of 3 as well. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we'll do it one more time. We'll say, keep the lights on. 1, 2, 3. Keep the lights on. That brings a close to our conference. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your leadership. We'll be in touch.